Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Stackability AI. I'm your host, Austin Cornelio, joined by my co-host, Mike Taylor. What's going on, Mike? How's it going today?
Gemini.
Gemini.
Gemini. A big day, big announcement from Google, their new platform, which is not quite available yet. I think it's going to be available next week in Bard, and looks pretty exciting. It was kind of mind-blowing, a video to wake up to this morning. You know, we're used to used to things moving fast, but wow, you know, it's just like so exciting because every day is like something, you know, something's going to happen. And then it's like, you get like a Monday and nothing really gets announced. And then all of a sudden we're like, I haven't heard anything from ChatGPT in a little while, you know, because, you know, you're hearing from them every day. But I mean, we're getting trained into the speed of this thing. And I think it's starting to feel like a little bit more normal that you wake up and the big bear came out with Gemini, and you know, it was pretty mind-blowing demo.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was a little bit surprised, for sure. It took me by surprise. I thought the video that everyone saw with the demo, the multimodality, was just really well done. And I think, you know, if you're a tech person, I think that you probably have... It's safe to say you might have a questionable view on Google. You know, there's developers who, you know, obviously are like Google, and then there's skeptics. But it was really good to see Google acting like a real product company. I think that it was polished a little bit. I would like to know if I'm assuming that all that wasn't like real time happening. It would be good to dive into that and see if it was, see if we can figure that out, because some of the things that were happening there were really amazing, in terms of, like, maybe one good example is when he asked it to make the game and it made that like world, like map hunting game. You know, like, it's just really amazing. You know, what we're talking about here is a legitimate demo of true multimodality that will 100% for sure be wrapped up into some sort of developer experience where you can just go to town and build the shit out of this stuff. So I'm super excited about it. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot where like these other players fit within this whole conversation around OpenAI and Microsoft and, you know, Facebook, and Google is a force, right? They always have been. You know, they own search, they have for a while. I'm sure that this is going to impact search in some way, for sure. Is this the replacement of search? Is a whole nother thing to think about. But I was pretty thrilled to see it, and it sucks for OpenAI because I think with the whole debacle that they had a few weeks ago, this was absolutely brilliant timing. And I personally have been wondering, like, what's Google been doing? What's everybody else been doing? And like, here's your answer. So.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what multimodality means, I think it's if you watch the video, and we suggest it, and we can even put a link to it below here. But in the video, it looks like a shot from above, and the AI is reading hand signals. It knows what he's drawing. It's like it's making these connections that were really, really wild to see, because it's like we watch so much of this AI stuff, and you see it on Instagram, and there's an AI model and this kind of model and that kind of model, but this was like real interaction. He starts drawing something, and then it says it looks like a bird, but it was really just, you know, round lines.
Yeah.
And then he adds the water, and then it's like, oh, it's a duck, you know. And then like you said, it created a game, but then the game was ask questions about a country, and then you point to the country. It wasn't like you typed in the country. You just literally, it followed your hand on a map, and you pushed it, and it was, you know, yeah, that's right, Australia, you know. And that part, that interactive combination of, you know, conversational requests, and then like to have it like be able to read your hand signals, like when he made the shape of a dog with his hand, and it knew that. And, you know, I think, you know, certainly from a novelty perspective, it was a real wow. It felt like, and it was stylized like an Apple type of video. Didn't feel like a Google video even at all. It's like, I wonder what the company that made the video is like, because it was super stylized, which is not something I think of when I think of Google in terms of their ads and whatnot.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant by they put on their product hat, right? And they were acting like a product company because it felt like a real product launch. So fantastic. Go Google.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting because it's like every week, it was Chat GPT, I mean, OpenAI that was dominating. They were like seemed so far ahead of everybody else. And then Microsoft kind of did this rope a dope, and like all of a sudden last week they look like they were on top of the world. Like they're the ones who are going to rule AI. They now have a board seat on OpenAI. They've established that they're doing their own stuff on it. And then it's like a couple days of nothing, and then all of a sudden Google comes out and it's like, boom, now Google's in charge. It's kind of funny how it's like, again, Meta is still in the background lurking. They'll come up in hopefully a couple of weeks, or by the next podcast with something awesome. But the Gemini stuff, our friend over at Maple, he was talking about the fact that he just built something on Chat GPT 4, and whether or not he was going to try and move it over to Gemini. So
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What do you think that looks like from a software engineering perspective?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges around building anything with these APIs right now is you're really kind of playing with fire, and you're taking a lot of chances because you never know what's going to happen with that underlying API. It might be really great now. It might be cutting edge. It might be the best, but literally, as we're seeing now, you could go a week or two later and you could have a player that is going to completely disrupt it, and 10x some of the outputs, right? So at that point, to answer your question, what do? You're kind of you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Because unless you're taking this into consideration when you're building and architecting your product, whatever it is you're building, and you can easily swap out the underlying APIs that give you this AI power, then that's an option. But if you're building anything worth its weight in gold, like that's probably not going to be the case because there's going to be more complexity. So I would say anybody that's building within this space right now really needs to think carefully and look at everything. Look at the founders, try and figure out the roadmap, because you're going to want to be in bed with the right person here, and either that or train your own model. That's the beautiful thing about open source is if you are lucky enough to have the data, you should be doing this all by yourself. You should be training your models. You should be owning as much of this proprietary stack as possible. And I think that that's probably what's going to pan out here is a lot of people are going to likely end up in that spot. I was talking to the CEO of Blaze AI the other day, and him and I were having a conversation about this, and his product uses OpenAI APIs, and he was saying this exact thing. He's like, yeah, in the future, we're probably definitely going to be, rolling our own solution here and, unlinking ourselves from these dependencies of vendors. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think obviously you're speaking to the space you understand so well, as much as anybody could right at this point, because it's changing so fast. And the thing is how do you write for that? At least now when you go and you have an idea that you want to execute on, so you decide, okay, foodgasm, we're going to go and we're going to make something, and I'm going to make it like this, and we're going to create it. You spend a month, you pretty much have a almost completed project, and now boom, new technology. You're like, oh man, now I got to go and learn the new technology, and I got to apply that new technology to what I already did. But you could do that now by yourself in the privacy of your own home. Whereas before, if you wanted to build that out, you would have had to have a team, maybe 5 people to go and just build the initial thing. And now all of a sudden you find out there's a new technology and now you have to plan for that as well. So, I mean, at least now you're only wasting your own time and learning as you go, because you can next month, it'll be something new, it's changing so fast. How could you possibly predict what's happening? So I think that that programmer guy that you sent me was talking about how to make these bots talk to each other and creating a siloed effect within the models. How would something like that apply? Is that a method that makes sense?
It is. So what you're referring to are agent swarms. So to simplify it, you're essentially having multiple GPTs talk to each other that all are very specifically tasked to do their own things. So if you think about a very basic company, so you have a CEO, say it's a software company, you have a CEO, you have a developer, and you have a product person. In this case, you would have 3 different GPTs that are all trained to do their respective roles. And what's cool about the video that you're referencing that I sent you, this person was experimenting with implementing their own agency with GPTs and automating them and giving them problems to solve and letting them go out and do it on their own. So this was something that was people were trying, but they were hacking it together via a bunch of open source code. There was this project called AutoGPT that was doing that, and it was super unreliable, but it was working, and it was kind of a cool thing. But now OpenAI has gone ahead and essentially empowered people to do this a little bit easier. So very interesting. It's hard to say, could this replace companies? I mean, yeah, if you can do it now to a basic extent, it's only going to very quickly be able to become more and more capable. So quite wild.
Yeah, this is we're on the bleeding edge right now of what's happening in AI, and it's fun to be there, and it's challenging to keep up, but I think that from a real, just what does this mean to the layperson, like anybody who doesn't know about technology? What is Gemini going to do for them, and what are these changes that we've seen this week happen, and how's it, what's going to happen for them with this?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think that takes us in. It's a really good segue into the main topic of what we wanted to talk about today. And before I get into it, I'd just like to say to our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and like the content. It really helps us grow the channel. So that being said, what does this mean? So I can answer the question, and then I'd like to go into some more general 2024 AI predictions. We're wrapping up the year here. Soon we're going to be embarking on a whole brand new slate, and it's going to be interesting. So to answer your question, what does this mean for the general, population? I would say that it's in the Google context. A lot of people use Google. Google isn't only a company for engineers. Sure, they have engineering offerings. They have Google Cloud. They have a whole bunch of developer-centric stuff, but they're also an everyday person's company where, they have email offerings, obviously, search. I think that just like anybody, just like Microsoft.
People say they Google things. They don't even look things up. It's like Jello, how it took over the gelatin business. It's, if you're going to look something up, you're going to Google it, right? You Google Maps, you Google anything. And I'm an Apple person. I'm a hardcore, Apple, iPhone, MacBook, all that stuff. But I don't use their software. I don't use any of their Office stuff. I don't, but I Google everything. I don't Safari anything. I don't, it's like, and then if it's something a little shady, I go it. But I'm definitely, I think every human right now knows uses Google, unless you're in a place where, Facebook, in like Indonesia, people refer to the internet as Facebook because that's the only way they can access the internet is through Facebook. So, it's unless it's like that. But I mean, like to your point, Google is beyond a household name, and for it to be so integrated into people's homes, and they have these home mesh systems. I mean, think about the information and data that they have on the everybody in the planet. They're like the CEO's wife owns or 23andMe. They have your DNA. They have everything.
Yeah.
So it's like they have all the data on everyone on the planet because they have all your emails. They have everything. So it's
Exactly. So
anyway,
so you're kind of answering your own question. All of that is going to get fed into a model, and the experience is going to be mind blowing, and there's not going to be any more search. The new way of accessing information is going to be via a chatbot, and you're going to be able to get anything you want in any type of permutation of data that you could imagine. That's probably like the biggest thing. I don't think it's going to go there immediately. Probably not. I think that all of this AI will get worked into their other products slowly-ish. It's been happening. It's certainly not a new thing. I'm sure people that use Gmail have seen the auto-completion. I mean, that's been a thing for years. So like this has been in the making in a while. It's gonna be progressing at breakneck speed. That's gonna be the biggest difference right now.
Yeah. What about the the current? It'll be interesting to see what happens with the ad model. Because it's they control so much through web traffic, and they make so much money in that space where you have to pay for keywords and you set budgets and you have to go through all that stuff. And then it just, it's interesting to see how that'll change too, because now, I mean, it would just be every question. Maybe you'd say, hey, what's the weather? And they'd be like, the weather is brought to you by, it's going to be every answer, every question is answered is sponsored, probably. It'd be something like that, it'd be like brought to you by QuickBooks. The sky is blue.
Right. I would say like hyper targeted advertising, and like I would even go to the stretch that it's ultimately probably going to be some sort of mind reading, at the end of the chain. I think that this is just, like, I can't stress this enough. This is so like transformative and groundbreaking. It's not just another thing. Like this affects everything, all of it.
Yeah.
And it's not going away. I mean, you have the largest companies on the planet racing to be number one. These are companies that have more power than government. So I can tell you right now, it's to the listeners here, this isn't just like another feature.
Yeah, this is not a warning. This is not a drill. This is the real thing. And I did hear some things on. We was listening to this. I guess it was our friend at Maple.coach again, but we on his Twitter Live, I guess, or X Live. I don't know what it's called, but there were a couple of people who were on that were very optimistic about these things, and I liked hearing that, that it's like the idea that maybe if we take out the human element of some of these things, we're going to get better results from using AI, because it's going to be impartial. It's not going to have all of our biases, and I mean, it might have it in there, but hopefully there's a way to filter out the gnarliness. I mean, honestly, I hope it's more like data, where it's just really just fact driven, and I'd rather deal with that, the side effects of actually having to deal with factual information than the other ways it could go. But it's going to be fun. I'm glad we're doing this, so we get to keep watching.
Yeah,
from the front row.
So I think that's a beautiful segue into the last part of this podcast episode. I'd like to talk about a few of the predictions that I have for 2024.
Let's do it on the
And
record. On the record.
yeah, on the record, I love making predictions and seeing like next week literally how wrong they are. So, to the tune of machines doing things better than humans, I personally think the medical field is arguably maybe one of the largest industries that are just completely ripe for AI destruction or destruction, not destruction, Freudian slip there. Just complete transformation. And if you think about it, just the task of saying, hey, like, I don't feel that good, something's wrong. I don't have to go to the doctor for that. I don't want to go to the doctor for that. I can just ask a chatbot that. Like, there's many things that right now, with the wealth of data that these models are trained on, that you can do that with ChatGPT. You don't even need a custom product. Like, you can get pretty far just by asking ChatGPT some things, and it will tell you. Or Bard or whomever. Any of these language models can handle it.
Austin,
However,
they're gonna have the. I mean, you're gonna be wearing, whatever your Apple Watch is or your Fitbit. It could do the predictive. It's gonna know.
it's data.
Yeah, it's
Of
data.
course.
So it's all numbers and
Yeah.
math, and it's gonna be on your wrist, and it's gonna be directly, hopefully. And this is the dreamer in me is that we'll have some autonomy in that information. It's like if you can collect that data and hold that data and not have to go to doctors, then all of a sudden, maybe somebody's got to pay you for the data.
Yeah.
Like, because right now, we're getting these, services, for our data, but it maybe, I don't know. There's going to have to be some. I mean, everybody's selling all the information, so I'm not sure how that would work. But maybe there would be, some way that you create your own AI, bot to monitor these things, and you have maybe an autonomous type of a wristband or something, where
They just
you can get the benefits of knowing what your data is without sharing it with the rest of the world. And I think, it's once you start getting into medical stuff, I think you're 100% right. It's a $4 trillion business in the United States. And, they're fully integrated into, keeping everybody sick enough to stay alive, but like, get the meds, get on the meds, I think I would love for that whole thing
Yeah.
to just collapse. And
and if you just think about the money that could be spent on medical malpractice suits, I mean, I think that the industry would do it just to get a one up on that. And I mean, imagine how much money you could save if you didn't have to pay out more and more money each year because of medical malpractice, because you're essentially saying that that's going to decrease exponentially because you're going to have hyper efficient machines doing the work of overworked humans or whatever, right? I mean, I can think of so many cases of people that I've known over the last few years, including myself, that have just had horrible experiences with even like the most basic medical procedures, completely like insane stories, and like this should not be happening. So
no, it's like
yeah,
50,000 people a year die in hospitals that didn't go in for anything that was supposed to be fatal. But I honestly think that, not, I want to say it'd be like 10 years from now or something, but there's going to be a time in the not too distant future where you could almost be, it would be unethical to have a human do a surgery when
Yeah.
and a robot could do it better. Or, like get a human diagnosis for a problem when I could literally enter, a drop of blood into a thing, and it would give me every piece of information about me that you'd ever want to know. Day to day, I could have a patch on my arm, like my brother has one, for his diabetes, and you literally have a patch on your arm that just reads every vital sign you could possibly have. And need to know about. It'd be like, today you should eat more broccoli.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's where it will go. So I would expect to see some advances. And to close out the bullet point about medical is, I think it's only going to take one company to do it and be successful. Just like you're seeing the arms race in tech, like you're going to see the same behavior happening, because you can't possibly not do it if your competitors don't. So it only takes one of these companies to do it, start implementing it, start having moderate success, and then you're going to see some really wild shit happening. So next I would go on to finance. So I've done a lot of work personally in fintech, and one trend that I've seen is that no matter how big the organization, like if you're, especially like if you're dealing with financial data numbers and such, having the consistent data is super hard and inconsistent. So I'm already seeing, inside the likes of like Goldman Sachs and such, they're starting to train their own proprietary models on all of their data. So why is that important? It's important now because it flips the whole lid on how you interact with your data and how you access it. So before, you'd have to do all this development and all this joining of data across all these different disparate systems to get your data into a product that you might be building that pulls from different sources. Now you're just going to query the LLM, right? That's going to have everything, and like that's going to be your UI. So I can tell you for sure that's probably going to start to take shape pretty quickly, and that will allow any bank or finance company to be really, really innovative with their pricing structures and how they build value for their business. It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that's going to for sure happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have spent a lot of time in fintech myself, and I was just thinking about this one demo that one of our data scientists did. It was about transactional data and how much information you could get just from somebody's bank swipes. And it was like it took, I don't even know how many hours and how many hours of processing and how many hours of sorting, and just to get to like this one story about this one veteran who, we followed through his day, and it was like every Tuesday he went for the medical, and then, he did this and then he did that. And we knew he was a veteran because, the first co-payment was to the VA hospital. And it was like all of these things that we were able to piece together about, 8 years ago, that were like hours and hours of work, unimaginable, like brilliant human being, doing the analysis and figuring the whole thing out. Now it's like, boom, here you go. Just type it in here, upload your spreadsheet of all your transactions, and all of your personal finance information will come to you, and it'll tell you where you're overspending, what you're overdoing, what you shouldn't be wasting money on, what you should be wasting money on, your reoccurring costs, like all that stuff could be done with an upload of a PDF. It's wild to see that it took such an expert, somebody who was highly paid expert to do one thing. And it took so long, and now it's just boom. What's this? Tell me what I should be looking out for, and it's translated.
It feels antiquated, like big time. And that was only 8 years ago. You said,
yeah.
Like it feels like that was like the 50s. But that's an interesting thing to think about. Is that's how that's a perfect example of the nature of transformation that we're talking about here. So completely, just earth shattering. So the next part here, you probably heard the term AGI, and it kind of brings together a bunch of stuff that we've been talking about. So AGI is essentially all of the different kinds of AI put together in a general artificial intelligence that can basically reason and act and self-improve like a human. So you're taking all the multimodalities, you're taking vision, you're taking natural language processing, parsing of text, being able to recognize written words, shapes, drawings, etc. You're putting all that together. We have most of that right now. One thing that we're missing is math. So believe it or not, the LLMs that we have now today aren't really good at math, and math is the underlying fabric of everything, right? So as soon as you're able to start asking these AIs complex math and you're giving them the task of solving complex math, this is when it's like truly kind of game over, in a lot of ways for life as we see it right now, because now you're going to have the whole suite. You're going to have everything, and you're going to have machines that can work on problems like 24/7 relentlessly. So you're going to see new algorithms, you're going to see new cures to novel viruses that don't even exist. Like you're going to just see so many new developments. So
Yeah, that's a
AGI
yeah.
AGI is a big one, and when you see companies like OpenAI pivot from being a safe AI company to now they're a safe AGI company, that is the end goal here. That's like, be very clear. This is where everybody wants to go, and this is the end goal. And I would say that there's probably already very rudimentary versions of this that we just don't know about, but this has happened. And I would presume that we're going to see something to this tune from one of these companies by the end of the year, 2024 for sure.
Yeah, I think like you said, with there was all these rumors, and we don't know what it is, but there was talk that they had a mathematical breakthrough at OpenAI that was the thing that concerned everybody. They get everybody scared because when you get into that, the reason why it matters is because everything is encrypted, right? So but there are all these bits of encryption. So it's like if you have 128-bit encryption, that means that it could possibly take a regular computer maybe, I don't know, 10,000 hours or 10,000 years to get to solve it, right? Isn't there something about that encryption, Austin? Like those different levels, and then
yeah, that was the whole thing about Q Star, and presumably that was what caused the whole shakeup in OpenAI and Sam's firing and everything. It's been debunked, but I don't know. It's an algorithm that would be able to essentially break cybersecurity and crack heavily encrypted algorithms. That protect the internet, right? If I had to really simplify it, if that's going to happen, then I don't even obviously that's going to be a problem. So
this just kind of happened in historical terms as well. I'm into the ancient religions and all that information. So there were ancient Sumerian texts that were written. It was the first written language. It's about 6,000 years old, and it's not the first written language. It was probably written before that, but they weren't writing it in clay and keeping it. So we have all these tablets, these thousands of tablets that have been found all throughout Mesopotamia, Iran and Iraq and that area. And now they just, with the help of AI, they were able to start translating these at a much faster rate. And they just found a tablet that had trigonometry formulas that are 1,000 years older than all the Greeks that we that we say that were the inventors of math and these things, but 1,000 years before. And what's curious, even more curious about it, is that these formulas that they were using were different than our formulas, the formulas we know. And even that type of information about the way they came about the same answer was different. So it's like a different form of trigonometry. So it's even that methodology that, is from, 6,000 years ago, which was probably understood, who knows, 1,000 years before that. But, it was written in clay, and that alone can transform the way we think about math. So it's happening from all these different things where it's like there's these mysteries about our lives that we have not been able to fund or whatever to find out this ancient information. And now with the help of AI, we put in the code, we take a picture of a slab that has a ton of information from so long ago, and it could be translated as if you were looking at a menu with Google Translate right now. So that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the funding bit, because that whole problem is going to go away. It's not even going to be a problem anymore, because over time the compute is going to be there, and you're going to be able to throw the processing power at this stuff, and it's going to become vastly commoditized, and you're just going to be able to throw problems at it, and it's just going to work on it until it solves it. So it's completely it's just a complete acceleration in so many ways. So
well, I mean, think about how many hours, right, Austin? Like if you have a development team working on a problem for 1,000 hours, and you have 6 devs, a couple of mid managers, the amount of money that could be saved just there alone, and I mean, but each one of those people who are in that position now have an opportunity to create their own thing,
Yeah, well, that's why people need to start listening to this podcast to get inspired.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So on to the next topic. We have 2 more here before we wrap the episode. You already mentioned one of these, and that's the AI swarms. Super, super interesting. The more that I see people playing with these, and I see YouTube clips of guys stitching together these demos of building, LLM equivalents of companies. This is very interesting to me to see what's going to happen here. I would expect to see this productized in some way, shape, or form by somebody, because it just goes along with everything else here, right? If we have all of this AI technology that can do great things and is hyper intelligent, why wouldn't you build companies around it and just have it run its companies itself? That's going to happen. So I guess it leads me to the last thing. We're talking about all of this stuff. There's definitely a lot of positives depending upon how you want to look at it. But what about regulation? There was an executive order put into place a few months ago. I mean, I don't expect to see anything on AI regulation, personally.
No, I mean, it was like the Obama interview where he was basically plugging, hey, if you got some time and you got some brains and you know anything about AI, come work for the government. Yeah. It was just they brought him out as a pitch man. It's you got to pull the guy off the bench. You're come on, hey man, we're a little behind in this stuff. But then
hold on though, that right there, I think is very important. And I'll tell you what, there's been a tremendous amount of tech layoffs this year. And where are these people going to go, right? I would guess, unless there's a huge opportunity for the government here to wake up and start hiring these people and bring them into the government from the private sector and give them jobs. That would be a huge, huge benefit for the government to do that and start working on real problems with smart people. If they don't do that, that's a huge missed opportunity. So, we'll see.
I think that's a really, really good point, Austin, because bringing that talent back into the workforce in a stable environment, get them while they're hot. We got all the best minds. Yeah. So in terms of we were talking about the government hiring these people, and I agree with you. I think it's kind of like the H-5 visas, it's let's get the brains into the government to start regulating some of this stuff, maybe, or at least have some smart people around. But do you think the dude that just got laid off from Spotify, or the dude that was laid off from Salesforce, and all the other tech companies that decided to overhire in the last 2 years are going to want to go back to working for these companies? No. If the government comes and says, hey, I'll give you a pension, I will give you your salary, and here's all of these
trivial problems. I mean, I don't mean trivial, but problems that you definitely are capable of solving. I mean, I would consider signing up for that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, and the problems are so trivial. My brother, worked in one of the departments in the government, and you up until 5 years ago, they were still faxing things,
Yeah,
into office, and they have microfiche, and they have all these things that are so archaic.
completely antiquated.
Yeah, it's just you're not going to them for technology. I mean, you could go to some of the branches. The government we see is different than the government that created the internet and
Yeah,
and
yeah. Two separate
and
things.
Bitcoin. But that's
We're not talking about those guys, to be clear.
we're not talking about those guys.
The other government.
The other government, the forward-facing government. Those guys. So what do you think? Are you optimistic? How are you feeling about 2024? Let's wrap this thing up on a note. Like what do you think is exciting? Let's not even worry about what's worrying. Let's just talk about, like, what are you excited about? Like,
I mean, it's exciting for me. I think I'm excited for sure. I think that is the world a good place? Absolutely not. It's completely fucked up in a lot of ways. Is 2024 going to be a good year as a whole? Like, I don't know, maybe not, but like there's going to be, I'll tell you this. There's going to be some very good opportunities for anybody that is technical or curious or creative and hungry to do anything within this space. So I think that is awesome. There's a lot of people losing their jobs right now. Maybe this is a new chapter for a lot of people. There's tons of different businesses. If you start having these conversations like we do a lot, like you become so inspired, and it becomes like a really creative process. So that's my positive note right there.
awesome. And I feel the same way. And I want to throw on there that not just because they launched Gemini today, but there is a free Google AI training course that is out there. So, if you're not working and you're curious about the stuff, you can literally take a free course and learn probably more than we know about AI very quickly. I think it's like a 10-hour course. Spend the time, go learn, and just like apply it to your life. Just think about, it's going to be awesome. And I think we're going to have some trouble in terms of the awesomeness that you could create within your own space, and having people leave. I'm in an event business dealing with event type people. And getting people out of their house is more difficult than it used to be. Have everybody spent 2 years inside ordering things, figuring things out. People adapt quickly. Okay, yeah, sure. Now we just have to order stuff, and I'm going to sit on my couch and eat dinner, and I'm going to, I'm not going out anymore. I'm not meeting my friends, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 years go by, and you're out of the habit of those things. So
so learn VR, get really good at VR, and make a lot of money, and then go outside, because there's not going to be anybody else out there, and you'll have the whole plan to yourself.
you have the whole park to yourself. Like Fort Greene Park, empty. Yeah, exactly. But as a New Yorker, I have to tell you, I'm more scared when there's no people around than when fill up a room. I'm fine. Give me an empty room.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's nice.
All right. Well, all right, everybody. That wraps this episode. This was a great episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Until then, peace out.